Hi everyone, my name is Emily Donovan and I am an artist based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my work and the process I use and making some color from natural materials. So I primarily work on paper, and the colors that I make and use are from plants and insects. The tones they make range from very subtle earth tones to vibrant, rich colors. And the work also has these ranges, or they often are made to reflect the day that the materials were gathered or my experiences outdoors. And sometimes they're just looking at the colors and just pushing what they can do. I like to forage locally for what I can find in the spring and summer months, which really puts you in tune with nature. Being outside, watching things grow, anticipating when there's a great time to harvest, and then there's so much inspiration. A lot of these natural influences have manifested into a body of work about birds and migration here in Minnesota. It was wonderful to think as an additional layer when you think about seasonal change and how birds arrive and when things are blooming, when there's food to eat, of course with the weather in Minnesota, and how all these different ecosystems work together, and as a direct reflection of what's happening in our environment or the health of our environment, and if these species are going to survive or decline, and what we can do to keep a healthy earth. So now I thought I would take you to my backyard and show you how I make some of the colors I use. As you can see, it's springtime and ferns and wild ginger are coming up, and I'll use those later in the season. And I've collected a bunch of rainwater, some dried goldenrod because it's spring here. And this is the color that goldenrod will achieve, really bright and vibrant. I also collected a bunch of seeds from the silver maples in my backyard, and we're going to boil these up with the rainwater. And then I also thought I would show you cochineal, which is a small insect that makes the most wonderful reds. The insect is mainly native to Central and South America. It lives on cactus, and once dried, you'll take it and grind it up with a mortar and pestle until it's a fine powder, and then you can add it to water with different modifiers and make an incredible amount of different colors of red, purple, and pinks. So I fired up the stove this weekend, and you will gently boil the materials for about an hour, depending on what you're using. Harder or woody materials require a longer amount of time or sometimes pre-soaking. So with my process, I'll then take the dyes and pour them into vessels. I like to use glass so I can kind of see what the colors are. So you can see the first one I poured is cochineal. The second there is the silver maple. And then this is the goldenrod. So once I've set up the dyes ready to use, I will take paper and actually submerge it into the dye baths. So a lot of these recipes are used by fiber artists. They're working with cotton and wool. So with the heavy cotton rag paper, the ideas transfer well. So this is the silver maple buds, kind of a warm yellowish tan. And now this is the cochineal, which, like I said, is so pigment rich and very vibrant and very fun color. It's also interesting to see how tightly the paper is rolled or where the edges line up. It will create different marks, or what I like to call is the living mark, so that line that's created, which I think is capillary action. And this last one, which I did pre-dye, is the goldenrod. So you can modify the cochineal, like I said, quite a bit. So what I'm going to use is lime because of the citric acid, which will immediately change the cochineal from the pink colors to an orange red, which is quite immediate. And as you watch it, it keeps modifying. This is iron. I put some gloves on because it's not the best to handle. It's also known as cople verde in Peru. And this, like iron with natural dyes, what they say will sadden the tones. I find with cochineal that it creates wonderful purples. As I mentioned, it's so versatile, and there's so many different minerals or additives you can add to change the tones and make a variety of reds, pinks, purples. And as you can see, the reaction's fairly instant. Right away, the pigments are changing with that iron, and the cochineal is going from a pink to a darker purple. This is an iron bath. That's 1-to-1 vinegar and water, and something that is rusty and metal. That's in old pliers. And with that, it's just a pure liquid. You can dye the paper with it. Here I'm just going to paint on with it. It's kind of fun. You can create quite a bit of line texture and just immediately watch the chemistry happen. It's quite amazing. And so the tones are going to continue to change, and you can see in areas of the paper that do not have the initial ground dye, they're not going to change in the same way. So after letting the paper dry for a little bit, you can see the different types of colors that can be created and the overall effect of the dyeing process. My next step is going to be creating a resist on the paper. So here I'm using beeswax. Sometimes I start just with the paper if I want white, so it's working light to dark. And then I brush it on. So this is a little more freeform. I'm liking like the different lines that the dyeing process created, so I'm masking those off with beeswax. Beeswax is not the only type of wax you can use. There's paraffin wax, which will create a strong crackle, which is also used in batik wax. Soy wax is a great resource as well. And then there's also different methods to create the resist, which I'll show you here in just a minute. As I add on the wax, there's something kind of really luscious about it because of the smell, and it creates little nuances that just work well with the natural dyes and how they're encapsulated into the paper. And that's what I kind of think about, is that like I'm encapsulating these colors from nature into these works and kind of the whole experience. So like before, now we're going to have a two-tone process because we have the original, the maple, silver maple seeds with cochineal. And I've let it soak for not long, about a half hour, because it's such a strong dye. And now you can see where the areas with wax did not absorb the dyes as much, and areas left open created a nice flat plane of color. And as I mentioned, wax is not the only resist you can use. And while working at home and not using like my same process or going large scale, I've been experimenting quite a bit. This is Katazomi, which is a rice bran paste that can be used as a resist. And it's quite wonderful. It has great, just smoky qualities to it. You can write into it, so much texture. So I've been enjoying that, and then also working on some stencils, which I'm hoping to have ready in the next couple of weeks. With our studios closed, I totally miss that big space, but I'm enjoying spending time concentrating on new ideas, and I hope that you're able to get outside and try making some natural color. In the meantime, you can find me online at emmaluna.com. Feel free to email with any questions about dyes or my process, and you can also find works for sale there. Thanks for watching my video, and stay well.